Hello.
Hi, Shazad, it's Chris.
Oh, hi, Chris. Thanks for calling me back.
Okay, you alright?
Yeah, I'm okay. I had the reason I had two points to discuss with you for calling you, um, and they relate firstly to the council tax issue that I brought to your attention earlier, and also in relation to identifying who we are. Now, as you know, we previously asked for information regarding Talib's benefit money and so on and so forth, and you've explained to me that the local authorities' position is that they don't need to inform us. That's correct, isn't it?
I don't know if they don't need to inform you, but that's their policy, yeah, that they don't inform the appointee,
Okay.
the service user, no, of the
Okay,
ballot.
okay, that's fair enough. But can you understand that policies are made by an individual or an organization? Like I've made my policy, I charge £1 million a week. That's my policy for providing care support services. But then you have to see whether that's lawful or legal or necessary and so on and so forth. So the purpose of my call today is obviously we received a council tax liability in the name of myself and my brother Talib of over £2,000. Now, so as a consequence of that, we made a subject access request to get an understanding of who's informed the council regarding this council tax. So, we have certain rights too. And those rights are enshrined in legislation, and that right is to make a subject access request or for data that you hold. So I've then subsequently proceeded to make a subject access request to the council on behalf of myself and my brother using my identity documents of the council tax. And so the first point is that the council has now turned around and said, look, provide us with your proof of identity. And I've got in touch with the ICO who says that it should be proportionate. And so basically, in order for me and my brother to make a subject access request, we are required to either to provide our passport or driving license in addition to 3 months like statements, utility statements or bank statements and so on and so forth. And I'm just trying to understand that, given the present circumstances, first of all, it's not necessary for us to provide that information because you can verify who we are, or to the council as an identity should be proportionate, not disproportionate. And secondly, is how and given the present circumstances, is my brother to execute his legal right to have disclosure made to him of his documents so I can help assist him in the context that no information was required by you, the council. You've just unilaterally put a council tax in our name. So I just wanted to obviously get an understanding from yourself that by law, you're an organization that's holding data about my brother, but then you're saying you don't require to give that data to him. So how does your policy of refusing my brother access to any information regarding his benefits correlate with his fundamental right access to data?
I don't know what to say really. I mean, how can I say that, Shazad? I wasn't aware that you made or the Talib's made a subject access request.
But obviously, we did make you aware that there's a unilateral council tax liability that's been sent out to us for over £2,000.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think you mentioned the £2,000, but you did say that there was a council tax liability. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, you're right. I maybe didn't mention the £2,000, but over £2,000 council tax liability has come in, and obviously there are ongoing utility bill costs that are accumulating. And you're fully aware of our financial circumstances, that we have no money coming in other than my carer's allowance, and my universal credit has been deducted by you, the council, money that you claim that I've defrauded and stuff. So we're left in this precarious situation. But the purpose of my call today was twofold. The first thing is to identify how, because obviously just because you got deputyship now, why would that we take data protection very seriously, and it's a right. So if he has a right to benefit money which you're keeping, and we're not clear about how you can continue to keep that money, which we've said is illegal. But then obviously here's a data protection right that you want to provide him with services, and this is one of the problems I'm having with regards to like getting him a new GP as well, because any service that we want, I explain, had to be compliant with the law. And one of the things is that we can make a subject access request for that data. Any organization, like you can make an access to the council for data, you can make an access request for your GP, anywhere you go. That's a right that we have. How in the present circumstances, given the situation that's been set up, that Talib can get access to his data?
So I mean that is with that whichever department you've made that request to. I mean that would be up to them on what is required regarding ID documents and things like that. I wouldn't be able to kind of alter their decision.
No, I'm not saying that. First of all, it's not department specific, it's organization specific. So we've not made a request for a department. We've made a request to we've not made a request to the council tax department. We've obviously made a request for all data, a joint request for all data. Now, obviously, I've received a letter back from the council stating that, look, they require this information, like, a proof of identity, all right? And it's quite substantial. And I've rang up the ICO and they said that it should be proportionate. So, you know who we are. We're not strangers, are we? And so, therefore, you could assist us by explaining that the person that's made the subject access request via email using Talib's email account or Talib Hussain primary email account, you can verify who we are by the telephone.
Are you not able to provide the documentation required?
It's not the case that we're not able to provide the documentation required. It's that I have an issue with the fact that it's disproportionate and unnecessary. Like, for example, why should we provide you with our driving license and passport? That's not proportionate and necessary to make a SAR request. And I've consulted the ICO who confirmed that obviously they need to identify who you are. I've gone to the website and they said, like, if we have an ongoing relationship, you don't need to identify who we are. Okay. Can you understand? Like, I don't need to identify who you are because I know who you are. You do know who we are, me and Talib, yes? And you know who we are. You know who we are to a point of giving us a council tax liability when we've not registered with yourself. We've not provided any documentation to register ourselves for the council tax. We've not even told you. You've just acted unilaterally and given us £2,000 council tax liability. Yet now, when we're trying to understand how have you managed to give that, we've made a subject access request, and you're asking for documentations that you would not necessarily be holding. So I've obviously wrote back to the department, but I'm ringing yourself up that you could confirm our identity over the telephone.
As I said, I don't know what kind of identification documents they require, and I don't know the policy and the laws around that. So you'd have to kind of take that up with them, really. I don't know what. I mean, by all means, if they say to you, well, if they're happy for me to kind of provide authority of identification, that's fine if they're okay with that, but that would be their decision, not mine. So you'd need to see what they say.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. I mean, obviously, I've written back to the DPO, which is the Data Protection Officer at Bradford Council, asking them to justify the level of documentation that they've required. I've also highlighted to them that they can verify me. There's no criteria in legislation that requires these documents. They just need to identify who I am. If they come back with whatever they come back with, I'm okay to direct them to send them your email address and say, look, you can email your own employee who can vouch for who we are, because it's not necessary, for us to provide this level of identity.
I'm fine with that. I would have thought, I'm not sure if they would require some kind of communication with Talib
Oh no, that's coming to the next part. So the next part is obviously so that's the first thing. Obviously, is the proof of identity of you who we are. Now, what do you call it? Just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna load up this email that I've sent to the ICO, and just 1 second. Sent. So I've gone obviously to the website, ICO website, and I've told them that on the website it says the following. It says you can what is the key point is that you must be reasonable and proportionate about when what you ask for. You should not request more information if the requester's identity is obvious to you. This is particularly the case when you have an ongoing relationship with the individual. You should not, or you should also not request formal identification documents unless necessary. First, you should think about other reasonable and proportionate ways to you can verify an individual's identity. So that is a quote straight off the ICO website. So whereas we've made a request and they ask you for formal documents, the ICO says that we have an ongoing relationship with yourself as the council, so you know who we are. It's obvious who we are. So requiring these documents, I don't think is necessary. But I will wait from the formal response from the ICO regarding this. But in relation to Talib, they've also said that they require. They said that please also provide signed and dated written authority from Talib Hussein authorizing yourself to act on his behalf. Now, obviously, if he signs an authority letter, then there's an issue of consent that comes in a question again. I'm just trying to touch base with you to try to understand that presently how can Talib get access to his data, or even authorize me to act on his behalf, because he's done that through the lasting power of attorney. I can't provide that. He's given me consent letters in the past. So I'm just trying to touch base with you regarding how we can get. I mean, quite clearly, if you the council's argument is that we don't want to give any money to Talib or Shahzad because of the criminal conviction or whatever, thus you've put yourself into this position. But surely there's no problem with me getting his data. What's the justification for that? Because I'm his carer and it's necessary for me to have this information. And obviously, if it's a case that I can't get his data, then unfortunately we can't procure any organizational services. Because, for example, I'm having some problems with his GP who are refusing to disclose his medical records to me now. You've read the order. The order specifically states that, I don't know, it just says something like, you don't have to comply with the data subject disclosures. But how can we proceed?
I'm not an expert, but I would have thought that if they sent that for Talib to sign and to date, then could Talib not sign and date that? And I mean, I would have thought it'd be easier for Talib, even though there's there's disputes or confusion regarding capacity with regards to different things. Wouldn't they still be able to release that information to Talib if he signs and dates it, and then he can discuss what ID is required?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the reasonable way forward, because that's not preventing my brother from executing his legal right like everybody else has. But unfortunately, that there's a problem there, in it, because if my brother authorizes me and gives me his authority to get his documents, then obviously the next thing is that he can then, rather than me getting that a letter from him on each occasion for each particular subject access request. So, for example, if I make a subject access request and he signs and dates authority letter that yes, I give you permission to get my data from the GP. Yes, I give you permission to get my data from the hospital. Yes, I give you my permission to get data from any other department. Rather than him making each piecemeal request, would it not be sensible for him to make a general request to say, like, I authorize my brother to get all my data depending on any organization, And then obviously from then there's a stepping stone to say, well, rather than just giving him authority to get data on my behalf, I authorize him to get all act on my behalf generally. And then we're back to the aspect of him authorizing a lasting power of attorney, which obviously the court order prevents from doing now. The problem is that if as soon as you accept the signed authority and as valid, then at what stage do you say the fact that yes, he can go to his GP and get his data, because that's obviously assisting him, and you can take this granular approach, but as soon as he starts taking a general approach, we're going to stop that. So this is the problem I have, you see. So obviously I've got loads of authority letters from him. He's obviously given a capacity assessment that was carried out in August, authorizing me to act on his behalf. But it's just that it's problematic in the sense that previously when we made this request last year, you, the local authority, so we made a disclosure request in March last year, and you, the local authority, had turned around and said that, oh, we have evidence to believe that Talib lacks mental capacity. So that was your pretext then, and I asked, what information do you have? And you were not able to provide that, and then subsequently I provided that actually it does have capacity. But that subject access request was not handled with. And then subsequently, a year later, that's what's triggered this, is the council £2,000 council tax liability. Now, you understand, Mr. Browell, that neither my brother or I are in a position or legally required to pay a council tax liability when we're on qualifying benefits. All right? But the reality is that this is a council tax liability. There's nobody I can speak to. You as a representative of the council, as the only point of contact I have. And it would be unfair and unjustified to say for me to put things in writing, because obviously Talib can't put things in writing. So this is the reason I'm ringing you for 2 points. First of all, is to identify who we are to you, the council. Because obviously you, the council, have come back and saying we need formal documents to identify you, and I've said that that's not necessary because that's not necessary because I've already we already have an ongoing relationship.
Okay.
So that's the first point. And the second point is that given the present circumstances, can you understand that some of the hurdles and problems I have? It's like, if I get him registered with a new GP in Bradford, he needs to authorize me to do that.
And is he not able to do that?
No, he's able to do that, but then I'm going to make a subject access request, and that's not going to be fulfilled then. Either he's... Look, Mr. I'm sorry about the squeaking noise. I've just got some birds that are squeaking. Hold on one second. Let me just put these birds down. Just give me 1 second, or I can get into a different room. Because they do make a racket. So what I'm saying is that of course you can authorize that, but it's you, the local authority, that are preventing this from, because of... I don't need to explain the situation to you or the problem that I'm facing here. On the one hand, you're putting a £2,000 council tax liability on us. When we're making a simple request for data, you're stonewalling that. And in order for Talib to get access to his data, he needs to authorize me to do that. But if he has the mental capacity to authorize me to collect his data, why does he not have the mental why does he not have the mental capacity to authorize me to manage his finances?
I would have thought because they're two separate issues.
But can you understand? The two separate issues. But with regards to capacity, the separate issues are not capacity. The mental capacity is not issue specific in this regard, is it? Like for example, like if you lack mental capacity, there has to be a cause or underlying reason for lacking the mental capacity. So the mental capacity, if he lacks mental capacity because he's got schizophrenia, then how can he authorize me to collect his data? How does he have the mental capacity to authorize me to collect his data, but then doesn't have the mental capacity to authorize to...
I would have thought that that would be up to the department that sent you the letter. So I mean, if they accept that, then if that's the wrong decision, that's up to them. That's them who's made that wrong decision. So if that's what they've requested, then presumably, if you provide them with that information or the signed authority, then it will be up to them whether to accept that or not.
Okay,
I can understand how it might seem inconsistent, but that's not really the concern. That's the concern of that relevant department.
No, but I'm not making a subject access request to a department, but I'm making it to an organisation.
I understand, but I mean, whoever sent the letter,
yes,
they've requested the ID documents, and you replied to them. They've asked for that written authority from Talib.
Yes.
I can understand that might seem inconsistent with regards to different things regarding finances, but if they've sent that letter, then that's what they've requested.
Okay,
so
and I'm
their head be it.
Yeah,
Really.
I understand, but like I said, this is the second time I'm making this request. The request last year was the fact that because obviously last year my brother, a similar thing was happening with the GP practice. I told you in March last year. I remember it was after my mum had passed away and we would come back to this property. I started to make subject access requests to all the organizations because obviously in March, unbeknown to anybody else, only known to me at the time was the fact that he had an independent mental capacity assessment report carried out in August, because obviously in February we were required to take my brother to Carmen Community Centre for him to be assessed by Dr. Todd. Yes?
Yeah.
And so therefore nobody knew this. So as soon as I made that information available, that look, actually he's got his mental capacity, here's the proof of that, and here's an authority letter, it's a signed authority letter from him, that was rejected last year. Now the thing is, I don't mind writing up another letter or Talib signing another letter. The problem I have is this, is that it's very distressing for Talib to deal with signing documents and stuff, and so I don't want to put him in unnecessary ask him to do something that's unnecessary and we're gonna cause him distress if the end result is not fruitful. So last year he already provided the authority letter, and last year it was already rejected. So I mean I'll take your advice on board, and I'll send them the same authority letter that I did last year, and wait for their response. But it just comes back to this issue. Look, we're not even asking for money now from you. All right. Obviously, you're not going to give us any money. You put all the roadblocks in place. But I, in order for me to continue to provide him with care and support services, I do need to have his data. I need to know what's been happening with the GPs, and I need to know what data you hold about myself. Now I've raised this issue last year with the ICO as well, because can you understand that when I'm speaking to you, you're getting my data. All right, I'm giving you my telephone number. You rang me back on my telephone number, and I'm not the service user, as you quite rightly point out on previous occasions. This is my number, not my brother Talib's number, and I've got no means presently to get even my data back regarding this. So we're in this a legal loophole or a vacuum where effectively we're not getting any access to anything. And I just wanted to touch base with you, and obviously I'm grateful that I can obviously I've got an avenue regarding identifying who we are. I wait for a response from the council's DPO, and I'll then advise them that we can be. I've had a conversation with yourself, and you can verify our identity, and it does not require a documentation that you're requesting. But moving on from this, I'm just fearful that presently I need advice from yourself to how can I assist Talib effectively procure services, given the present circumstances of you, the local authority, acting on the one hand as his deputy, and at the same time looking to provide him with make him your client as an organization.
So what do you mean by that then? Sorry, she's had to procure what services?
Because can you understand that if I am for example, if I am providing Talib with services, Talib has no right over me in an informal capacity, because I'm not an organization bound by the law. But as an organization such as yourself, as a local authority, you are bound by the law. So you have to register yourself with the, for example, with the Information Commissioner's Office, because you as an organization are collecting public members' data. So, obviously, anybody that the data that you're collecting, you are obliged to provide them with that information. However, under Talib's circumstances, Talib is now effectively rendered to a situation where you have the authority to request data on behalf of Talib for yourself. It's not going to Talib. And Talib has no means to express that. He's asked for that. So basically, Talib has asked for his information regarding what data you hold regarding his finances, and you're saying it's our policy not to provide that information. Well, how does your policy concur with his data protection rights, that he has a right to be informed about what data you're holding about him? Ordinarily, you see, I can make a request to the council and say I want my data, just like anybody else, any other citizen can. But Talib is now left in a situation where you're holding his personal data, like his finances. He's specifically told you in a face-to-face visit, when you came down in May last year, that I want to know how much data, how much money you've got of mine, and you're not able to provide him with that. So how is he, as a vulnerable individual, able to execute his legal rights to know information?
With regards to the balance, that's just what I requested that, and I was told that information isn't disclosed. With regards to the subject access request, that's the Information Government Department. I can't. That's a separate issue. So
okay, no, I understand this, but then there needs to be somebody who can advise us appropriately. Obviously, they've given me your number. You're contacting me back. I can speak to you. You work for Bradford Council. And you're not telling me who the decision maker is, because the decision maker has made decisions that have now put me and my brother into this situation. Now we want a clarity of understanding, because everybody has a right to have a clarity of understanding of their circumstances. Our circumstances are now unprecedented, and we need clarity of understanding. How have you put yourself into this situation? Because can you understand that presently, I mentioned to you the local health and well-being complaints regulation 2009. Did I mention this to you, that I, as my brother's relative or nearest carer, have a legal right to raise formal complaints regarding any care services that you, the council, are providing him with? So that's a right that's not being denigrated. The only reason that I'm not executing that right is because presently you're not providing him with any social care services for me to lodge complaints on his behalf. But under those circumstances, I'm providing you with care. But should you remove me and you provide the care yourself? It's contradictory, because on the one hand you're providing the care, and yet you're the only organization authorized to lodge the complaints, and you can't lodge the complaints on your own behalf. So it's a conflict of interest. So all I'm trying to say is that there are certain legislative rights that my brother has, and everybody has, like, for example, to have somebody lodge a complaint regarding the services that you're providing as a service user. And similarly, he has a right for his data as a service user. But under these circumstances, the authority of the service user you have completely yourself. So effectively, it negates the rights that he has. Does that make sense?
What negates the right?
Sorry, pardon?
What are you saying negates the right?
Because in the present situation is one where, because of first of all, you, the local authority, are acting as Talib's have legal authority over him, don't you? You're his deputy, yes?
With regards to finances,
yeah. But generally speaking, who has authority over Talib?
I mean, like we said, there's no one has LPA at the moment, is my understanding, no.
No, but in the absence, look, what happens is that in the absence of either somebody has a lasting power of attorney, in the absence of a lasting power of attorney, a deputy is appointed. That deputy then handles has a legal authority for that person. No, because for example, if Talib was to pursue a claim of compensation, he can't pursue that claim of compensation because you are his deputies.
Okay, right. With regards to finances, Bradford Council is the deputy. Okay.
Okay, there's only two forms of deputy, either for finances or health and welfare, because those are the only two lasting powers of attorney. He can't act on his own behalf. So how can he lodge a claim of compensation or any legal action against you as a service provider when at the same time you have a legal authority, a complete legal authority over him?
I wouldn't say it's legal authority, is it? It's for his finances. I don't think it's legal authority.
No, but in the absence, maybe I'm a little bit stuck here because if somebody has, if I have legal authority over Talib, that means he's given me all his legal power, legal authority. So that's a lasting power of attorney. He can authorize me to give me his lasting power of attorney. If he does authorize me to give me his lasting power of attorney, do you accept that I have legal authority to act on his behalf then?
I know what I'd say is that Talib has his own, he can act on his own behalf.
Oh, but where are you getting that from, that he can act on his own behalf?
Well, in the absence of a lasting power of attorney, again,
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes. Sorry.
That's my understanding. Whether that's correct, I don't know, Shazad.
No, you're right. You're right. You are right. In the absence of a lasting power of attorney, he can act on himself. You're right. I mean, sorry for the confusion, yeah. But my example was that if he's given me lasting power of attorney, a lasting power of attorney, what can I legally do that he can't do himself? I can do everything that he can legally do himself, can't he? I can basically take out a mortgage in his name. I can, make a claim for compensation or legally represent him. I can pursue a claim of damages on as his representative because he's given me his power of attorney. So that power of attorney is one option. If you remove the power of attorney, it's superseded by a deputyship order, a court-specific deputyship order. So effectively, you, the council, are now have power of attorney for my brother Talib. That not correct?
With regards to finances.
Yes. Okay. With regards to finances, so how are you in a position to pursue a claim of compensation if the council provide failing services to him?
I didn't catch all that there again, please.
I said, how are you, as the council, in a position to pursue a claim of compensation on behalf of Talib for services that you provide Talib with?
So the compensation with regards to what?
For
what services?
Yeah, for failing to provide him with appropriate services.
So that's not to do with financial.
It is.
So that would be Talib who would then, with your support, I understand, would be able to make a claim for that.
Yeah, but the claim for compensation would be financial, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but because it has to do with money doesn't mean that it's a financial claim. Ultimately, it's Talib who could seek advice and legal advice about that.
But yeah, so this is the grey area, because my understanding is that he can't do that because he's considered a vulnerable adult who lacks capacity. Unless you tell me something different, because that's my understanding, is that either the person has capacity, all right, and if he has capacity, he can authorize me to act on his behalf. But what you seem to be suggesting, and in regards to the subject access request, is that he still has authority to act on his own behalf, and you, the council, are only limited in managing, basically getting his money and accumulating his money. What other responsibilities do you have as having legal authority to act in his financial interest Look, basically, is it not a conflict of interest where you're managing his finances and yet at the same time you're meant to be providing him with services that have a financial cost associated with them to yourself?
But there isn't any services that have a financial cost as far as I'm aware for Talib at the moment.
Presently, that's correct. Yes, I understand this, but and that's because I'm here providing the services. All right, and if I'm here providing the services, I myself can pursue a legal action against you, the council, for my costs. Okay, but in my absence, if, like, for example, I said, look, I've had enough, or something was to happen to me, would it not be the case that you would then by definition have to provide Talib with services?
There will be a care assessment to assess Talib's care and support needs.
Yes, but you do understand that previous care assessments have identified that he has substantial care needs, and previously you, the local authority, have been providing him with care support services, and you do understand that any kind of support services would be, under Section 117 aftercare. So there's a legal that. I'm just trying to understand that you have a legal duty of care to provide Talib with services. Those services are a cost. Okay, so let me put it another way. You understand and appreciate that anybody in Talib's situation is entitled to direct payments by law for the services that he receives from the council. Yes.
If they're assessed
yes.
under the Care Act,
yes.
to have care and support needs.
Yes.
Yes.
So how can you on the one hand give Talib money, all right, because he's assessed as needing those needs, and on the other hand solely be responsible for managing that money? That is a clear conflict of interest, no?
To be honest, I don't know the details of that, but there is. I'm aware of other service users in which there's an appointeeship in place, and they're also in receipt of support, day-to-day support as well. I don't see how, as such, it's a conflict of interest. At the end of the day, if somebody is to require the deputyship over their finances and they have support needs, and family and friends are able to meet those support needs, then I can't see what other way around it there is, really.
Well, this is one of the reasons that the people that the lasting power of attorney, or the authority of deputyship is handled maybe by an external organization, because my understanding is that the government obviously recognizes this, that what do you do under circumstances where there is such as the circumstance that you've described, where people are on the one hand receiving services and then the same organization will be managing the money. So under these circumstances, normally what happens is the Court of Protection allocate a body called a solicitor's firm. Because a solicitor's firm
is... I've heard of that as well, absolutely.
Yeah. So under those circumstances, it's called like an independent solicitor's firm. Because, like, for example, if the local authority was not his deputy and no family member was his deputy, then the solicitor would be his deputy. Because then obviously the solicitor has no conflict of interest. His job is to look after Talib's finances, and therefore, if, for example, the local authority provide him with services, the solicitor who represents Talib could then look to pursue a claim of compensation or action against the local authority. But can you understand, if the solicitor is managing his finances and also providing him with the support services, then there's no external party in that scenario, and that's the scenario we're facing with Talib's situation. You, the local authority, are on the one hand legally responsible for him through the court order of him being his financial deputy, and then at the same time you are obliged to provide him with financial services or financial products, service products that have a financial component to them. And that's a conflict of interest which has now been created. So in a similar vein that he's making a subject access request, I'm assisting him making a subject access request, which is his right. But then we're in the circular argument that you are acting as his legal authority of his deputy. Now, with regards particularly, there is no such thing as lasting power of attorney for data protection. Okay, there is no such thing like that. The legislations do not provide a separate lasting power of attorney to deal with his data. They have two lasting power of attorneys. One is to do with his finances, and one is to do with his health and welfare. All right. And in the past, when I've made subject access requests, they've asked me for the lasting power of attorney or his authority. I have used the lasting power of attorney not for health and welfare, because that only becomes executable once the person is identified as lacking capacity. I've used his lasting power of attorney for property and finances. Because I think where the confusion lies with yourself, Mr. Browell, is this. You're saying that we've got deputyship for his finances, yes?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, but that's not solely correct. You got deputyship for his property and finances.
Okay.
And property consists of tangible property and intangible property. His data is his intangible property. Okay, so this is the problem that arises, is that you've got a legal authority to make the subject access request yourself from yourself.
Okay.
Because it's his property, isn't it? Property does not have to be tangible. It can be intangible. And
I don't know what I can do to change this. To that, this is what you need to pick up with the people who sent you the letter.
yes, but I'm just trying to gain clarity of understanding of, the decision maker's done this. So the decision maker, I know you're not the decision maker, but you're the only point of contact that I have. And so, basically, if you do something, then, we're in unprecedented situations. So therefore, we require assistance in navigating this unprecedented conflict of an issue that I have. All right? Can you, how can I best illustrate this? As an example, if, for example, I don't know, this is maybe a ludicrous example. If I have a daughter, all right, I'm the father. But then if I sleep with my daughter and she has a child, then that child, I'm both the child's grandfather and father. There's a conflict of interest there, isn't there? And that's why you should not have children with your own children, because it creates a conflict of interest. Am I the grandfather or am I the father? All right. In a similar vein, you've done something that's unprecedented. For example, this would, in my mum's case, it was a bit more simple, because the courts had allocated Veronica Mullins of Ramsden Solicitors to be my mother's financial deputy. So there's no conflict of interest. You, the financial deputy, and you, the counsel, are not at conflict, because obviously you're not the same organization. So in my mum's case, when you were providing the services providing services to my mother, you were then going to my mother's legal representative, the solicitors, and getting money off them. But in these circumstances, there is no solicitor. That's correct, isn't it? There's no external party that's representing Talib's as his deputy. You are the counsel.
No, I don't know if it'd be possible to request that there's like you say, an independent solicitor to be allocated as deputy. I'm not sure, but.
No, but this question is mute. It's already happened. You the counsel are his deputy, and this is the issue that I brought up in court, because there needs to be the government has created these independent financial deputies. All right, there are a panel of basically they're called professional deputies. All right. So in my mum's case, the Court of Protection allocated a professional deputy to represent my mother's financial property and finances. But in Talib's case, there is no independent professional deputy. You, the counsel, have taken on that role, and now as a result of you taking on that role, is creating a conflict of interest. And I don't. You're taking on all the power. Like, for example, look, another example that I can give is that my brother was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, Section 2 and then Section 3. The law makes provisions for the nearest relative to object to his incarceration. But then you, the local authority, look to become his nearest relative. And under those circumstances, there's meant to be an independence between the health authority and you could be his nearest relative, obviously, which is a ludicrous statement because I'm his nearest relative, and you look to depose me as his nearest relative. But can you understand that if my brother is detained in the in Linfield Mount, the Linfield Mount manager cannot be his nearest relative as well, because how would the nearest relative right then be executable?
So I think you need to seek legal advice. I don't know what I can do about this. Shazad, you need to follow the appropriate avenues. I'm not a solicitor. I can't really provide any advice or support on it because I don't know.
Okay, and
I don't know the legislation well enough.
I understand this, but remember, I'm speaking to you not in your capacity as a legal advisor or the decision maker. I'm speaking to yourself in your capacity as the council's point of contact or representative of the decision maker. These problems, all I can do is highlight these problems and ask you, the council, to provide a solution to these problems that you've created. They're not my problems. All right, I'm just simply explaining to you that, look, you, the council, have certain legal obligations. All right, that you're effectively stonewalling or sidestepping to my brother and my detriment. Now, I need to understand that should, for example, Talib receive services from yourself, and if he was in a position, and then he has a right, like everybody else, to pursue a claim of compensation, how would that happen? So let me explain to you that in 2012, you, the local authority, took away my role and provided him with services, and then put him into a car accident. So you have liability. Now, if you have power of attorney over or deputyship over him, he cannot take legal action against you whilst you're providing him with services. That's where the conflict of interest arises. You are both have legal authority over him, and you're providing him with services. That surely cannot be right. Now, I need to speak to somebody about this. So whom can I speak to if it's not yourself?
And what is the issue again? To summarise what the issue is you want to speak about.
I need to summarize, I need to understand the conflict of interest that's been created in executing Talib's legal rights. So Talib has a legal right under the Social Services and Health Authority Complaints Regulation 2009 to raise complaints or somebody to raise complaints on his behalf. Presently, he's not receiving any services, so we're not raising those complaints. But he has that legal right to do so. Should you remove me and provide the services, then how is he left in that legal right to pursue that, his rights under legislation? Similarly, he has a legal right for his data. Now, given the present circumstances, to summarize, how is Talib in a position to secure his data or his property while you are the one that have a deputyship or power of attorney over his property? Effectively, you have power of attorney over his property, and yet you're holding his property. So how does he execute that right to get his property? Does that summarize it perfectly? Do you understand, or is there still some confusion?
I don't see how it's different than what it's just kind of like with other services in similar situations. I don't understand why this in particular creates a conflict of interest.
Because other service users are not, you don't have power of attorney over other service users. All right?
What do you think will be the resolution to this?
Because I think there's some confusion here. You're talking about DWP appointee. You're saying other service users have a DWP appointee. All right? And if you were just the DWP appointee, maybe this conflict would not arise, because then it would be only to do with money, wouldn't it? Because that would be specifically to do with the Department of Work and Pension money. All right, so that conflict maybe doesn't arise, but in our particular circumstances, you are not only the DWP appointee, you are his deputy. You are legally authorized as his legal deputy for property and finances. Given the present services, I need to know how Talib is in a position to pursue litigation action against anybody, even under these circumstances that, like, presently we're having litigation action pursued against us. Why are you, the local authority, not representing him? all right, because obviously you're looking to make us homeless, all right, and there's court action being taken against Talib, all right, and you are legally authorized. You want the legal authority to act as his, deputy for property and finances. When Talib's property is being damaged or threatened, like if my property is being damaged or threatened, I can take litigation action against the person that's damaging my property. But under these circumstances, you are the ones that are damaging the property or interfering with the property, and yet you have complete legal authority as deputy. So how does
Manningham Housing, regarding the housing issue, that's Manningham Housing though.
No, but Manningham Housing are taking now legal action against Talib, aren't they?
Right.
So they're taking legal action against Talib. Talib has been deemed through the courts like not having capacity, and so somebody needs to represent him legally, doesn't they? So you, the local authority, are his deputy. You are his property. So it's an issue of his property, and he can't do it himself. So why are you not representing him in these court proceedings? Because somebody's taking legal action against him. And then equally, you're going to take legal action against him for not paying a council tax. How can you? This is the conflict of interest. Let's just say, for another argument's sake, you've issued out a council tax liability for Talib for £2,000. Let's just say, as hypothetically, he's not going to pay that council tax. Your action is to take legal action against that person. So you can take legal action against me. I can defend myself. How is Talib meant to defend himself against legal action against you for not paying his council tax, when at the same time you are his legally authorized deputy to have power of attorney for his property and finances? How can you prosecute somebody and equally at the same time be responsible for defending them?
I don't know about legally responsible for defending them, but I can understand how, if there's a deputyship in place and Talib's money is in that deputyship and there's a council tax liability, that may create a conflict of interest. But I don't know about a legal right to represent.
Okay, but can you understand that if Talib's deputy was a solicitor's firm, all right, and Talib was responsible for council tax liability from you, the council, and then if Talib did not pay his finances, you could take legal action against Talib, all right, but he would have a solicitor's firm acting as his deputy, whose sole job is to protect his financial interests and act on his behalf in the court system. But under these circumstances, you are effectively that person to defend him.
All I can do, any request that you've asked before, I can try and voice these, but whether I get a reply or an answer, I don't know. But it's basically, is there any advice regarding the council tax liability and deputyship in place? And is there any conflict of interest or any other kind of support that Talib could get around that?
Yes, I mean, obviously, I expect nothing less from you other than to relay this information. But ideally, why can't I not speak to somebody directly regarding this matter, the decision maker? But the decision maker is not choosing to identify themselves. Who's more in a position to not act as a go-between. I don't need you to be a go-between. Obviously, I can express these things, and these are the conflict of interest that's arisen now. Obviously, on the one hand, you've told me that this started because you've sent me a council tax, and I then, as a response, need to identify who's given that information to you. So I've put a subject access request for me and my brother. They've said that we want a signed authority letter. I've given them an authority letter, but I've explained to you that if you, the council, accept this authority letter, then it undermines your power of deputyship role. Your role as deputy, because the deputyship effectively states that this person cannot manage his affairs, all right, and his affairs, particularly regarding property and finance, he cannot manage, and somebody needs to be allocated. So equally, this is the conversation that we had last time. You, the local authority, are basically stating that because he's got schizophrenia, he cannot manage his affairs. Which affairs? Well, his property and finance affairs and also his health and welfare affairs. Now, last time I asked you, the last time we spoke, we talked about the responsibility of managing his affairs regarding health and welfare. What have you received back from regarding those inquiries?
Nothing.
But did you raise those? But did you raise those as to the appropriate people?
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
sent an email and I was given no reply or response to those questions.
Can I ask who did you request this information from?
I think copied in my managers. I think. Yes, my managers. I think even though there might not be ongoing court proceedings, I think we are able to seek legal advice from the legal department. So legal department were copied in as well.
Oh, okay, and can I confirm that the Graham Kenner was copied in from the legal department?
Graham has been continues to be involved. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because maybe I should speak to him directly. Because obviously, like I said, under normal circumstances, either somebody is deemed to be unfit to manage their own affairs. Like you can imagine, if somebody's got dementia, they will be deemed unfit to manage their own affairs generally. But they might have some limiting capacity to do certain things. So therefore, they have capacity to do certain things, but generally the court of protection decides that this person, generally speaking, lacks mental capacity to manage their affairs because of some underlying health condition. All right, because otherwise everybody is assumed to have ability to have capacity. But some people, like for example, if you got dementia, then obviously that your condition of dementia is degenerative, which means that you cannot manage your own affairs. Therefore, it's necessary for somebody to manage your affairs, and those affairs, if they have still the capacity to give authority, they can do so by signing over a lasting power of attorney. Now, the lasting power of attorney is broken down into affairs relating to health and welfare and affairs relating to property and finances. In our particular circumstances, you, the local authority, have gone to the courts. I allege that you bought off the judge, you bought everybody off, but irrespective, you managed to procure an order that states that my brother Talib lacks capacity to manage his affairs, particularly in relation to his property and finances, and therefore you've asked the courts to put you, the council, in charge of his property and finances. But nobody has been put in charge of his health and welfare. And you can understand that it's a conflict of interest. No, sorry, it's negligent on your part, because on the one hand, you're making the argument that because he's got mental health problems of schizophrenia, he cannot manage his affairs, and we want to take charge of his finances. But you've left nobody in place in charge of his health and welfare affairs. You keep on reiterating that you're in charge of his finances, but who accepting the fact that Talib does not have the capacity to take charge of his execute his own affairs, and you are in charge of his finances, who is responsible for his health and welfare affairs? Who has the legal authority?
I've voiced that question as well, and again, not no reply.
Okay, because obviously, in the past, it is clear that the Office of the Public Guardian have given you instructions, haven't they?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, okay. So, and when you've raised this, have you included them into the concerns that I've raised?
No, I haven't. I haven't really been in direct communication with them.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so they've communicated to you via your legal team and asking you to do something on their behalf through the channel of the council's legal department. That's correct?
That's my understanding. Either that, I'm not sure if it's via the legal department or via appointeeships by financial protection.
Okay, all right, but yeah, so okay, that's fair enough, because obviously this is a clear case of negligence then. Because can you understand, if you've removed a lasting power of attorney for health and welfare, which would have, or where I said Talib has authorized me to act on his regarding his affairs regarding health and welfare, because you've removed that, I can no longer act on his behalf in health and welfare. Therefore, I cannot liaise with his GP practice. However, I have done so under the direct authority that is given me to get his data from his GP practice. They have now obviously failing to do so, not giving me an explanation. But, obviously, this is very negligent on your part because Talib now is suffering. And I don't know what to do about it because,
As I said before, Talib is registered with a GP practice before. If you both turn up at a GP practice and try to register Talib, then that would be the first way of trying to get him registered with a GP practice.
But generally, yeah, I understand this. That is but it does not answer the legal question. If Talib lacks capacity to manage his own affairs with regards to his finances, how does he have the capacity to authorize either himself or me to register him with the GP?
Well, if you know the two separate things, and if it hasn't been, that isn't a barrier to him accessing healthcare, as far as I understand. He's registered with GPs before. He's not, as far as I'm aware, he's not changed sufficiently in his presentation. So if he can try to register with a GP,
okay.
If he then gets turned down for reasons of him lacking capacity, then we could try and see.
You seem to be missing the point here. Previously, if he's registered with the GP, I can assure you that he's not ever registered with the GP himself. He's only done so through myself taking on that legal responsibility of dealing with his health and welfare affairs. All right. So previously, when he's registered with the GP in Oldham, he's done so with with a direct authority because his issue of his mental capacity had not been concluded with, right? So I could say that he's got authority, but can you understand that on the one hand you've gone to the courts and you said that this person lacks capacity to manage his affairs, but it seems that if he lacks the capacity to manage his affairs in property and finance, and this is a property and finance issue, the health and welfare is only relevant when the person lacks capacity. But you, the local authority, is saying that he lacks capacity now. So if he lacks capacity, because that's the only way that you become his deputy, then who's responsible for his health and welfare? It's a circular argument because, look, this is why it's very, very important to establish from the onset, does the person generally have capacity to manage his affairs or not? And that's why the mental capacity assessment is very, very important. But there's no definitive mental capacity assessment that's been carried out in relation to my brother Talib that states that he lacks mental capacity. However, there has been a definitive mental capacity assessment stating that he does have capacity. But if he does have capacity, then how have you ended up as in charge of his property and finances?
I think we're just retreading all ground.
Yes, we are. Yes. Yeah, no, I appreciate. I don't think there's anything further I need to say. I'm just really looking to wrap up my conversation with you now. I rang you up for 2 points. The first point was to identify who we are because we're still service users. We made a subject access request. I await a response from the data protection officer. I think her name's Alison, to reply to my inquiries of why they require our identification. Identification documents when it can be done in an alternative way because we are still service users and I've provided them with a council tax. And obviously you've been kind enough to say that I can forward, you can verify basically the data protection officer can verify our identity by contacting you as an employee of the council. So that's fair enough. And then obviously the second point I wanted to look to discuss with you is regarding, Talib's rights to execute like his data rights or his other rights, a particular, and then obviously I wanted to get an update on his where we stand regarding his health and welfare responsibility, who's responsible for that. So I think those are the only points. If you could kindly relay the sentiments, and we'll see if we get a response back or not. But like I said, we're financially now struggling because obviously you've given us a £2,000 council tax liability, and there's no way we can manage that. So
okay, I mean, do you think that is a legitimate liability? Because, I mean, obviously, if Talib's got money in appointeeships, could that be paid from that money?
But why? But why have you, the first point is that why have you put it in Talib's and my name without our permission? That's the first thing. But then, can you understand? You, the council tax, you the council are raising money that you are basically got of his already. Is that not conflict of interest? You got his money, and then you're saying we're going to use that money to pay ourselves council tax. When ideally he's entitled to a council tax rebate.
Well, okay, so if he's entitled to a council tax rebate, then they should send, you can, say that you disagree with that liability and we'll strike it off.
Yes, but that's my title. But who's put it's not the case that we've registered with yourself. Officially, as it presently stands, we are still homeless, aren't we? We're living here, we don't have a tenancy agreement here, we have no legal authority to be here. So, but yet you the council have decided that we want to make money. We need the £2,000 from you, and you've put in a council tax liability. We've not contacted you saying we live here now. All right, okay. And also because effectively we have no legal. We are presently our occupancy is under dispute. So if our occupancy is under dispute, we have no means to get even register with the GP practice in Bradford, because we're not formally. It's not the case. This is our house. It's been disputed, and so that's another cause of concern. Is that presently he's registered with the GP. You want me to, where, obviously he was living before, or where he was residing before, presently he's residing here, but there's no certainty. So rather than moving GPs, because often what's happened is that for your information, his GP practice has not received the records from the previous GP practice in Oldham. So there's an administrative cost here, and we need to see if that is effective. We've got no certainty at all. We've got no certainty of accommodation. We've got no certainty of finances, and more particularly, we've got no certainty of our legal rights. So all we're looking to do is just get some certainty here. All right, and you keep on, basically it just seems that, we're going to screw you guys over, we're going to do whatever we like, there's nothing you can do about it, because we can always buy off the judges, and we're above the law, we can do whatever we like, and we can just make lies and bullshit up afterwards and say it wasn't us, it's all your fault, it's your family's fault, and get away with it. That's ultimately, it just seems to me that there's no legal framework that you're working under. You're basically just gangsters plundering and profiteering from the weak and vulnerable. That's why it just seems to me that that's the situation, because there's no law that you're abiding yourself to. You're getting his money, you're accumulating his money, you're not giving him unfettered access to his money. Obviously, I've spent over thousands of pounds taking on abroad on holiday. You're not looking to remunerate me, and you just continue to target and victimize us. But that's just generally the situation we're facing. So, Mr. Browell, I will look to end our call. Thank you for taking my call today, and hopefully you'll be able to get some information regarding this new issue that I've brought to your attention regarding the council tax, and also the subject access disclosure that we're making.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you,
Mr.
Thanks. Thank you, goodbye.
Cheers, bye now.
Absolutely ridiculous, just wasting my time, taking up my resources, alright, unnecessarily. They're doing something that's conflicted. They're doing something that's wrong, and then I'm having to come along and fix the situation that they themselves have created. Why should I give up my time and resources dealing with their incompetencies and stupidity and malevolence simply because they are the local authority and they'll do whatever they like? It's just absolutely ridiculous that they're doing this. So I'm not sure where do we go from here? Quite clearly, Mr. Browell, he can't do anything. You understand? He's just I'll take what you're saying, I'll pass it on, I'm not going to do anything. They all basically, look, the reality is this: they've taken all the money, they've taken away all the resources, services and resources. They know sort of something called carer burnout. They know the fact that eventually carers are going to burn out. We're going to come over, we're going to take on the full responsibility. We're going to use Talib's money to pay one of our agents to provide him with the care and support services. We're going to get an order excluding him from access to his own family members, just as they did in my mum's case. This is exactly a blueprint that they did in my mum's case. They took all the money, then they kicked me out, and they provided all the services. Then they ended her life, and nobody's any the wiser, no liability, absolutely zero liability, zero responsibility, but yet in charge of having all the authority and power. So they want authority and power, but take on no liability or no responsibility for their actions, and they just want to do as they please, which is absolutely a ridiculous position to be in reality. But it's a good position for them to hold, because obviously they've got no accountability for their actions then, and no legal repercussions for their actions, because they're the ones that are in charge of of complete legal authority to act in behalf of my brother, and they can cause him harm and distress, and he's effectively got no access to any legal recourse. Basically, they're just denying him any legal rights. So he's basically, effectively, to surmise, they've taken a free individual citizen, a British citizen, and made him into private property. Talib is, like my mother, is now the private property of the council, and they don't need to give an answer to anybody. They've taken a person and made them into a property, their property, for their own financial profit and gain. Ridiculous.